everybody, welcome back to day one, Breakfast with Bob from beautiful Oceanside. My name is Bob Babbitt, brought to you by Hoka, Master Spas, DeBoer Wetsuits, Quintana Roo, and of course, our Challenged Athletes Foundation. We've now sent out 50,000 grants to challenged athletes around the world, and we're about to send out for 2025. We're going to send out $5 million in grants. And one of our grantees from over the years, Lera Doederlein, joins us, only one of my favorite people on the planet. We go back a little bit. So, Lera, let's talk a little bit about growing up and what do you remember? You're born in Russia.
Correct, yeah.
And your both legs were an issue. Mm-hmm. And what do you remember about Russia and living there? Or not? How old were you when you left there?
So I was adopted around 18 months old.
Okay, so you remember.
Most of my recollection only comes from stories that were taught by my family.
Okay.
I really have no memory on my own.
Which is probably good.
I would think so.
Yeah.
I know that my own experiences were pretty average within an orphanage, nothing too crazy.
Yes.
But it all changed when I came over to the U.S. probably. So,
and I think your birth parents were told, listen, you can't afford medical treatment for your child because her legs are deformed.
Yes. Yeah, I think right off the bat they didn't know I had a disability until I came out.
Right.
And I was born. And right then and there, I mean, I was born in a pretty poor part of the country, and the doctors just recommended adoption right away for my future benefit, really. And yeah, I was put up within the same day.
So when you come to the U.S. and you're adopted by this amazing family, the Doederleins, and you have arm crutches and leg braces and going to school and sort of dragging those legs around. Yeah. How difficult was that for you, just on a daily basis? It seems like it wouldn't be very conducive to being happy.
Yeah, a lot of my frustrations built up as I got older. I think when you're younger, you have a lot more capability in your head. And
right.
I mean, there are a lot of things that aren't brought up until you're older about what you can and can't do. Mm-hmm. And as I got older, I began hearing people tell me, you can't do this, you can't do that. And, I would try to play a team sport at my middle school or elementary school, and there were restrictions there. And, I would have to take a different bus to school even.
Right.
So little by little, I started to realize how different I was.
Yes.
And it definitely made an impact socially, and even physically. Walking became a bit harder as I got older.
And I remember, I think there was a point, maybe you were about 14 years old, where your doctor was talking to the Doederleins and yourself and basically saying those legs are pretty non-functional. You're going to be dragging them around and you're going to put a lot of pressure on your shoulders. And at some point, you may want to think about amputation. Mm-hmm. And I think your adoptive parents were like, oh my God, we don't want to do that. Where you were pretty much all in pretty quickly that let's get rid of these things and see if I can live a life.
Yeah, very much so. My family, besides me, were pretty timid about the idea of amputations. Right. I mean, so many unknowns. There was nothing that was confirmed for me in the
right.
future. There was no, yes, you're definitely going to be able to walk. It was, you're going to have to put a lot of work into it situation. And I think right away I realized that I would rather do that than wait for things to get worse. I think as a kid, you want to have a lot of control over your future. So I kind of wanted to take advantage of that. And my parents were definitely questioning the idea, but they stood behind me on that decision to do it and go through with it through.
And to me, it was almost like when somebody's been hiking for about a week and had nothing to eat, and then all of a sudden there's a buffet. And they go nuts. Here's Lera, who'd had no sport. I mean, really, zip. And the legs get cut off, and you're like, okay, it's salad bar time. Mm-hmm. Let's try a little adaptive surfing. Let's try some sled hockey. Let's try wheelchair basketball. Whatever was out there, you were going to. Did you feel like the chains were off?
Yes. I remember distinctly the very first time I got on the ice. And I had no idea what I was doing, and I was falling everywhere, and the equipment didn't fit me because it was double my size. But at the same time, I got moving and I had no limits. I had no worry about my mobility because I was able to control it with my upper body. And it was the first sport that really gave me the opportunity to do that.
Yes, and so you're sled hockey, and you're become a member of the U.S. developmental team. So obviously you're having success right away. Anaheim Ducks make you their 21st Duck, and I think that's for opening day, where the 20 members of the team skate out, and then here's Lera skating onto the ice for opening day with the Anaheim Ducks as the 21st Duck. Just talk about how cool that was.
It was a surreal experience. I mean, looking back, that was 2019, and that's 6 years ago. Every year they get to award a new 21st Duck and add to the family. And when I was at it, I was a few years older than 14 at the time, and just having an outlet in a community that extended from just like Challenge Athletes Foundation,
right,
Hanger Clinic Foundation, adding a whole different experience to my life and more opportunities. It made a huge difference for me and even my local hockey team as well.
Yeah, and I remember in 18, I think it was 18, when we went back to the NHL Network. And Rudy was actually living, Rudy Garcia Tolson, double above knee amputee, was living in New York at the time, and I asked him to Uber up so that you'd get a chance to meet him, to see another double above knee amputee and see this is a guy, at that time, a 4-time Paralympian, multiple gold medals, did the Ironman, that there really weren't any limits for someone who was a double above knee amputee. Seeing Rudy and seeing other athletes like him, how important was that for you?
It was a big mental shift for me, personally. I think Rudy was one of the first double above knee amputees, let alone somebody with a disability who I had seen even before or after amputations.
Right.
And right from there, I realized that there really wasn't as many limits as the world was telling me around me.
Yeah, and so there we had Kevin Weeks, who was a goalie in the NHL, and he surprised you with your sled hockey sled. And having a sled hockey sled that actually fits you, that makes a pretty big difference.
Very big difference, yes.
Right? It's like having a pair of shoes when you're a size 9 and you've got a size 12. It's not quite the same.
You want the glove to fit.
Exactly.
Yes.
I remember seeing video of you like falling out of the bucket, falling out of the thing. And all of a sudden you could be as good as you wanted to be. So here's hockey, and you're on the U.S. developmental team for that. Then CF starts a women's hand cycling team. I remember 5-time Ironman world champion Carlos Maleta coming to me and going, "Do you see how long Lera's arms are? I've got a hand cycle that she'd be great at." So then women's hand cycling team. And you and Oksana Masters and Ryan Reed, and you guys are traveling around the country racing as basically professional athletes. That had to be so much fun.
Yeah, it was a great time. And to have female role models for the first one of the first times, aside from my sled hockey team, but as a team sport athlete transitioning to an individual sport, it made a huge impact seeing people who were doing the same thing, with the same disabilities, with the same mindset, who had come up and achieved so much and were inspiring me day by day on the road.
And here's Oksana, who not only was winning golds in hand cycling at the Paralympics, but was in winter sports, right? She was doing para-nordic and para-biathlon and winning golds there. Was she the one who put it in your head that, hey, maybe try a little winter stuff?
Yeah, she definitely kind of inserted that idea into my head. It took a little time. I was a little...
You weren't really interested in cold, I bet.
I mean, I play sled hockey.
Yeah.
But, as a kid, I just wanted to play hockey all the time. And I had a lot of sports being thrown at me at the time, but I took a chance with it, and I went out to a ski camp for about a week or so with the U.S. development team and some of the skiers on that team at the time. And right away, it felt very transitional to and from hockey. I fell in love with the sport as well, and they invited me to come train with them afterwards, and I couldn't say no. I mean, if you enjoy it and you have passion for it,
And then here you are in 2022 going to the Paralympic Games in both para-nordic and para-biathlon from somebody who, a few years earlier had no sport and had legs that didn't work. How was that, just being there for that opening ceremony for you to look at what you had achieved in such a short period of time?
I think even looking back now, my perception of that whole experience has changed so much, because at the time it was a huge learning experience for me. I was pretty new to the sport, so I wanted to take every opportunity to learn as much as I could from the other athletes, from the staff, just from traveling internationally for almost a month. Which was a first for me. It was a lot of different experiences, but looking back now, I'm like, wow, I got to do that. I competed at the Paralympics.
Yes.
And it's pretty incredible to look back on. It's very inspiring for my future.
So now you're working in a couple of YMCAs. You're going to college where?
I go to Cal State San Marcos.
And what are you majoring in?
I'm studying psychology.
Psychology, and I'm sure you'll be exceptional in that as well. So are sports now more recreational for you? Do you see that, I know you're still, sled hockey's still big.
Correct, yeah. I think, after having the huge buffet of sports that I got in the first few years of having no legs and getting into the adaptive world, I settled down. I think a lot of my personal priorities came in outside of sport, including family and school, my education, and a future career became a big idea for me. But sled hockey has always been my number one passion, and I intend to stick with that. We have a lot of progress internationally with the sport, and to see that go to the Paralympics eventually someday is probably my biggest goal and dream, and I will stick with it as competitively as I can.
I think what a lot of people don't realize is that for sled hockey, there is men's sled hockey, but there is not women's sled hockey in the Paralympics, which is the silliest thing in the world.
It's very silly.
Right? It's ridiculous, because I know you've got a number of countries that are exceptional at sled hockey. For the women's teams are exceptional. And so what is the path? How does that happen? Because it seems like once one side of a sport is in, if the men are in, it should be an easier path for the women to get in.
There are a lot of obstacles for the sport. Not only are we a female but also disabled sport. There are a lot of hoops to jump through, and a lot of it is just international involvement isn't there yet. Even within the U.S., there's a lot of restrictions for funding and planning, and I think it's going to take a lot more hands than we have right now. A lot more intention and passion for the volunteering and the coaching, and just everyone kind of going into the sport itself. I personally would like to see more desire to grow it internationally, especially from other countries who do have a development team. I think it's just not quite a priority right now for them, but it definitely should be. And I know it will be at some point. It just might take a bit of time.
Now, is there a tournament coming up?
So I actually just had a tournament with the U.S. team. We were...
it was 4 teams or something? Or what was that?
We actually just had a border battle against the Canadian team. We were in St. Catharines, Ontario last week, and we played a series of 3 games against the Canadian team. And the U.S. team, we did sweep the tournament.
And this is all women?
All women's,
Love it.
Completely women. Just the U.S. versus the Canadian team. It was a great tournament, a lot of good competition, a lot of progress within the teams. It was really exciting to see. Looking forward, we actually have just recently confirmed that we have our first World Championships in August.
Wow!
And that will be happening in Slovakia. So
how many countries will compete?
I believe there's 5 or 6 teams happening this year. We've had a few teams pop up over the last few years, and they're just starting to develop.
How many countries do you think need to commit before you can get in the Paralympics? You need like a dozen?
I believe across the continents, you do have to have a certain amount. I believe for each continent, but at least 8 countries.
8 countries, okay.
I believe we're at 5 or 6 right now.
Hey, you'll get there. And you're so young. You got plenty of time for this thing to happen again, right? Now, are you thinking a year from now for Nordic, biathlon, or are you going to wait on, you're going to focus on hockey?
I would love to. I think just with
School.
my academic career kind of really starting to become important to me, and I really would love to like fully commit to the sport of skiing, but right now just quite isn't the time
Priority.
for me. Yeah.
Got to have priorities.
In the future, though, it's a possibility.
So what has CAF meant to your journey?
I mean, CAF was the start of my journey almost. They were the reason that I was able to get further in every sport that I tried and meet the people that I've met and network and really believe in myself, essentially. Not only were they able to support my funding financially as a disabled athlete, it's huge to have that, but just to have the people who, you realize there are so many people within the Challenge Athletes Foundation that truly care about every single athlete, and that really made an impact not only on me but my family too. Seeing that was really important for us.
Love it. Well, we love having you part of the CAF family, and it's so cool to see. So what year are you in college?
I'm a junior currently.
Junior. Now you have to do grad school as well, probably.
That is the plan, yeah.
That is the plan. Good for you.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking time to join us, and thanks for being part of the CAF family.
Of course. Thank you.
Lera Doederlein has been our guest. Everybody, again, Breakfast with Bob from beautiful Oceanside. Hold on. We will be right back.